Yes, thank you, hello and welcome to Loose Ends. In a tricky week for news, especially for the former Attorney General Sir Geoffrey Cox QC, who is said to have earned £6 million, possibly guineas, from his outside legal work in the years when he was also working as a Member of Parliament. This has surprised a lot of people, enraged others, but left some commentators rather regretting giving up their second job as a barrister years ago. Ah well. But Cox aside, Parliament has been getting back to basics with a return to traditional debates about sleaze, second incomes and scandal. But luckily, overall, Britain is certainly not a corrupt state, assuming the word of Boris Johnson is to be relied on. COP26 has come to an end, more or less, in Glasgow, with climate change not quite solved, but plenty of expressions of good intentions, which could pave the way to... Oh, no, it's the road to hell, which is paved with good intentions. We don't want to go there, do we? But good cop or bad cop, we shouldn't allow the issue of global warming to be put on the back burner, or indeed any sort of burner, come to that. Here on Loose Ends, we do have hot stuff, even hot legs today, as we're joined by not one, but two great British music icons. Damon Albarn has been writing, playing, singing and producing high-end popular music from as long ago as the 1990s, first with his band of Humans, Blur, later with his animated creation Gorillaz. Damon has his poetically titled solo album Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows to tell us about today. But starting in the 1990s makes Damon a raw newcomer compared to Rod Stewart, who's been rocking and rolling, singing and songwriting since the 1960s, a career which has long ago taken him from pubs and clubs to concert halls, stadiums and international stardom. His latest album, The Tears of Hercules, another good title, is out now. I'll be talking to Rod in just a minute. We're joined by the stand-up comedian Jen Brister, appearing at the Vaudeville Theatre in London, together with a number of other comics celebrating and encouraging the return of live comedy. In addition to Damon and Rod, we have music from Jordan Rakei. And Athena Kugblenu is with me this week. Who's your plus one today, Athena?
Today, I'm talking to Dan Schreiber. You might know him from the smash hit podcast No Such Thing as a Fish and its television spin-off No Such Thing as the News. He's one of the highly specialised experts who dig out facts for the evergreen panel show QI. We'll chat about facts, being funny and delve into the latest offering from the QI elves, Fun You Should Ask Again.
So let's start with Rod Stewart, Sir Roderick David Stewart CBE, whose decades-long career as a pop, rock, folk, ballad, R&B, soul and blues singer, performer and songwriter has brought him record sales, worldwide chart success, as well as fame and fortune, wine, women and song. But is he happy? The legion of fans he gained with the release of Every Picture Tells a Story in 1971 will find themselves and Rod himself in familiar territory in his latest album, Tears of Hercules. Turns sexy and sentimental, fast and slow, naughty and nostalgic. There's even room for tributes to his late father and Mark Bolan. And Rod, you're ready, willing and able to go on tour as well, around this country and around America. What keeps you going?
Oh, the love of it, my friend. The love of it. That's all it is. I've just done 10 shows in Vegas. We have been on tour.
Yeah.
But the big tour starts next year with Australia and New Zealand, followed by the USA, Europe, and then the UK with Las Vegas in between. And then I'll call an ambulance.
Well, I know Mick Jagger does lots of, keep fit exercises and running around. Do you do all that? Do you have to go into strict training?
Yeah, I always have done, because I've played football all my life, which has kept me fit. And of course, you have to train to play football. So I've kept it going.
I don't know if I've invented this story myself or I've seen this somewhere. I imagine you, as a boy, you grew up and you had a view over railway lines and football pitches beyond them. And then as you grown up and got rich and famous, you now own your own football pitch and you've got your own railway lines because you've got your collection of model railways.
Yeah, it's you couldn't make that up, could you? I mean, look out my window. There's the railway, and beyond there was the football pitch where we used to play. When I was playing for my dad's team with my two brothers. But those two wonderful sport and a hobby have stayed with me.
So all these themes kind of crop up in this album. I mean, I don't say I identify with you, but I have a similar thing to you, as I think of myself as a Scotsman born in London to save the train fare. So you've got your connection with Scotland, and of course you rather movingly talk about your father. I don't know if he was teaching you to play football, but encouraging you to play football as hard as possible when he was around.
Yeah, he was a big influence on, me and my two brothers, and we all used to play for the same team, which would cause big rows in the Stewart household if one of us was one of us was dropped, but no, he was a lovely man, a quiet man, but very patient, and until he got on the touchline, then he'd lose his rag.
They became Alec Ferguson on a bad day.
Exactly, and we all still do it. I go and watch my boys play, and
you're a bad
try
dad.
to be quiet, but I can't.
Well, we better get back to music. A couple of weeks ago, we had Mike Darbo on this programme, who wrote Handbags and Glad Rags, not initially for you, but you latched onto it. And like a lot of songs, once you sing a song, it kind of becomes your song. You've got a way of delivering them.
A lot of people have told me that. It's I somehow make them personal.
I think people would think of you with that song more than Mike Darbo, who actually wrote it. But
yeah, he's a lovely fellow.
Yeah.
Of course, the Welsh band did it. What are they called?
Stereophonics. The
Stereophonics.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah. Well, I think I saw you in the Railway Tavern in Wealdstone in about 1969.
I was with Long John Bulger, I think.
Yeah. You could well have been.
Or it may have been the Jeff Beck group.
I saw you again in 2016, but this time it was in the Salle d'Étoile in the Monte Carlo Sporting Club, when you did a great sort of set, after dinner set. Which do you prefer, playing in the Railway Tavern or in Monte Carlo to rich dinner? I was there working in a sense, but rich diners.
I don't. I always. It's like Las Vegas. Las Vegas is obviously they don't have diners anymore, but they're not all fans.
No.
So you've got to win them over, and that's what it's like in Monte Carlo. They've got a lot of money, and they're rattling their jewellery around. You've got to win them over, and it's a challenge. Whereas when you play a regular show, your fans are there, and all you got to do is turn up and put on a good performance, and you've done it.
Now, look, I mentioned Mick Jagger. The Rolling Stones have had to drop, or they felt they have to drop Brown Sugar. Do you ever get any pressure on some of your raunchier songs or things that don't fit in with the modern way of thinking, to drop those from your touring sets?
These songs were, things like Hot Legs and Stay With Me and Do You Think I'm Sexy, were all written in a different era, but they represent that era, and that's what makes them worthy.
Or something like Tonight's the Night, which is the singer is talking about. It's a seduction, I suppose, but it's of a young person, which is. Do you ever think, maybe I'll move on from that, or is that still fun?
I give the audience what they want, and songs bring back memories.
When you're touring, how do you decide what have you got a very clear idea what songs people want to hear again and are going to join in with half the time?
Yeah,
that gives you a bit of time off, I suppose, in the song. You let the audience sing them for a bit.
Yeah, no matter how you try, people, when you get in my position, people don't really care about new songs. They just love all the old stuff. I'm lucky I've got a barrel load of old stuff, They're great songs, if they last this long. You look at Maggie May, every time I play Maggie May, I say, look, most of you weren't even born when this came out. So it must be a good song.
So I mentioned the model railway. Do you have a model railway here in England and also in America? Do you have sort of
no, mate,
just the one, or you flies the Atlantic?
It all got flown over here. It's taken 8 months, 2 containers on a ship that went through the Panama Canal, and now we're rebuilding it here in Britain.
Right, and so it runs on electricity, I suppose, and you build buildings around it, and
yeah, it really is a masterpiece, even though I say it myself.
Of course, and you were kind enough to help out. There was a model railway club in Market Deeping who had their model railway trashed, and you helped them out. You
I sent them some money to get them restarted, and they've kept in touch with me. They're really lovely fellas.
Now, your wife Penny, is this right? She's a special constable, a police officer.
She is a special constable.
So does she make sure you obey the law all the time?
Yeah, she does. But she studied for 8 months, and a lot of people laugh at this, but she really put her heart and soul in it.
Yeah.
All sorts of exams, physical exams, fitness exams, and she does 1 night a week on the beat around the city of London.
Well, I mean, without wishing to raise worries, are you anxious when she's out on patrol? Because it's not all pleasant activities when you're a police officer. All sorts of emergencies arise.
No. Yeah, I do worry. I send my driver to go and pick her up. Sometimes she don't finish till 1 or 2 in the morning. I don't sleep well until she texts me and says I'm safe and in the car. But she loves it. She said, apart from I want to give something back. She actually said, I want to look after the city that I love, which is London. So I thought it was very touching.
Excellent. So on this album, as I mentioned, you've got a range of different moods, I suppose, on the album. But the Tears of Hercules, many of the songs you've written yourself. This one you didn't write. Tell us what the Tears of Hercules means. What's it about?
Men being able to let go of their emotions. I mean, I'm sure you had a few tears in lockdown, didn't you? I did. I'm not ashamed of saying that.
Yeah.
I broke down like a little girl, and I had my wife next to me, and she pulled me together. I mean, they were tough times. Not as tough for me as they were a lot of other people. So I couldn't leave the UK. They're my 3 children I've got 8 kids, and 3 of them were in Los Angeles. I didn't see them for over a year, 15 months, because I couldn't leave. Literally could not leave the British Isles.
Well, it's good to have you locked down in the British Isles for a bit.
I wouldn't say it was enjoyable,
No.
but, especially to the point where you couldn't go anywhere.
Yeah, sure.
So hopefully we're all over that now and we're on the winning side.
So there's 12 tracks on this album, well, 3/4 of which you wrote yourself or co-wrote. But is there a particular track we'd like to play a little bit in?
I mean, my favourite is the one I wrote about my dad, Touchline.
All right. Thank you, Rod. Thank you, Rod Stewart, Sir Rod Stewart. And Rod will be on tour next year. Here's a clip from Touchline. The song is written about his father from his latest album, The Tears of Hercules.
Bless you all. See you on tour.
There he'd stand every Saturday afternoon, rain pouring down that well-worn face, with a cigarette in his mouth, part of a tiny, noisy crowd. He'd watch his sons play the game he loved. He would tell us lots of stories of heroes and glories, and the pride of the Wembley Wizards and Busby Babes. His enthusiasm was infectious. He bought us football boots for Christmas. Our dad was a Scotsman and a plumber by trade. I remember one time being 3 down at halftime. So we looked to Dad for a plan to turn the tide. He said, son, we're not here to have fun. That winger's trying to ouch be a mug. Tackle him hard and leave him face down in the mud. On the touchline, on the touchline.
So we come now to Damon Albarn, whose extensive performing, songwriting and producing career has taken him from his band Blur in the Britpop years of the 1990s to his later creations and collaborations, Gorillaz, Africa Express, The Good, The Bad and The Queen, and so on. Today, Damon is able to join us in person in the Loose End studio. He's going to perform a song from his latest album, which is a solo project called The Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows. It is a very poetic title.
Well, it's from it's John Clare, actually.
Yes. Now, people...
the peasant's poet.
Yes, and it's quite a poignant poem, that, isn't it?
That was kind of a working title for how this album started, which was looking for a window not dissimilar to the one in front of us in Iceland, and I had some fantastic classical musicians with me, and I kind of gave them they were very sceptical at first. I said, I want you to play the landscape. And so that's how it started, this record. It was going to be a purely kind of instrumental, environmental thing.
Yeah.
And it had the working title, The Nearer the Fountain. But once that became impossible and I was left with all this beautiful kind of abstract orchestral music, I kind of returned to John Clare and realised that phrase, which is from beautiful poem Love and Memory, was indeed much more kind of sort of closer to how I was feeling at that moment. So,
well, it's a poem of regret of somebody young and beautiful has died, rather than an environmental, the stream is polluted. So it's a bit like the sort of they shall not grow old, we will left grow old,
yes,
which of course is
exactly
repeated up and down the country this time of the year.
For me, I related it was that essence, that spirit of somebody being young.
Yeah, right. So did you have somebody in mind?
Well, I had a few people, to be honest with you, but I suppose the most notable in kind of sort of wider sense of it would be Tony Allen, who
the drummer. Yeah.
He died last May, and it was a terrible shock to all of us. I mean, even though he was just shy of 80, he was one of those kind of guys that I really believed I would still be playing with when he was 100.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no
sort of immortal
kind of warning that this was going to happen. So in a way he was in my mind when I was kind of writing this record.
But let's go to Iceland, which you also mentioned, because you live there, or you're holiday home there, or you spend a lot of time there.
I have spent a lot of time over the last 25 years.
Yes. And is it right you're a citizen of Iceland now?
That is true. Dual nationality.
What took you to Iceland in the first place?
It really was something quite specific. I used to have a recurring dream as a child of levitating over vast expanses of black sand, and I always looked forward to that episode in my dreams when that happened, but I didn't know, it had no geography to it. So it was only kind of when I was a young man and I was watching TV in a hotel in America somewhere, and there was a program about Iceland and beautiful panoramic shots of vast expanses of black sand beach, and I identified it with my childhood dream and decided that it was calling me somehow, and I went up there and I really sort of fell in love with it.
When you're not there, you're also in Devon. I mention that because there's tracks on this album that also reflect.
Well, it really genuinely started as an instrumental orchestral thing, and then I just felt last winter that I was in that mood that I needed to somehow transform it into song, and I was in Devon and by the sea again. So there's a very clear connection there, and it was really cold as well and dark. So there's that as well, and I think the two are quite natural bedfellows.
You're always doing something else. You don't let anything sort of stay still. You want another form of music, another combination of people.
Well, I'm just a eternal student, really. I'm in my whatever it is 50th semester now.
And is there more Gorillaz stuff on its way?
There is, and lots of interesting diversions.
Now, I'm sorry to raise this because it's maybe a painful question to ask, but I've heard you talking about having damaged or lost your finger in a freak accident.
Last Christmas Eve, I was making pesto.
Yes.
And for some reason, I didn't just stick my right index finger into the bowl to taste it. I stuck it back into the blender and switched it on.
There's a clear mistake made there.
My goodness, there wasn't much left of it, to be honest with you. Yeah, no, I was just very fortunate that someone was kind enough to sew it back on. It's absolutely fine now. I mean, it's a bit bent. Yeah. It reminds me of my utter stupidity.
So anyway, I should just, in business terms, you're releasing this album, and you're also touring coming up, or is that?
Well, I mean, like all musicians, next year I've got sort of almost 3 years of touring deficit to make up.
So were you really getting stir crazy in the the lockdown time?
Not at all. No. Not at all. I was, to be honest with you, really enjoying not having to rush around all the time.
Yeah. So I can't get this image of what you're doing when you're in these beautiful places. Are you worrying about the world, or are you in frantic songwriting and recording?
When I'm down there, I swim every day in the sea.
Yeah.
And I cook. I pick nettles and make nettle soup.
Clear plastic out of the sea.
Have ongoing battles with the squirrels, talk to the crows, watch the sheep.
All right, so what are you going to perform for us today? We've set you up with just a piano, which so it won't be exactly the same as it is on the album.
Well, I'm going to sing the last song on the record called Particles, which came out of a fantastic conversation I had on the plane to Iceland with this little old lady who started talking to me, and at first I was just thought, oh no, I'm going to have a conversation for the whole of this flight, which I quite like to just read or sleep on on planes.
Yeah.
But she was just the most fantastic person. Turned out she was a rabbi. She came from Winnipeg, and she started talking about particles and how she was escaping particles, and that Donald Trump was a particle, but not to worry about him because he was just a particle that came in and stirred things up and then disappeared, and positive things always come out of that interaction. And, you know, it became very cosmic. And I was thinking as well about the Northern Lights and how they're particles from the sun, and they die when they reach Earth, but they leave us this incredible sky. So that kind of thing.
Yeah. No, well, excellent. So let's you sing that for us. So I was very pleased to thank you very much for coming in.
My pleasure.
Damon,
pleasure.
You know,
Thank you for
songwriter,
having me.
singer, and pesto accident survivor.
Goodness. Well, actually, in the hospital, they have a name for it. They're called avocado injuries.
Oh, right.
You know, it's sharp knives and fingers,
Yeah.
and avocados apparently is very common.
First world injuries, maybe.
Except everything's first world in my life.
Okay, here's Damon Albarn with
All right.
Particles.
When the night patterns the room and black sands return, I will drift away from land till the sun begins its burn. Only you, darling, can call me back in. For the particles are joyous as they lie on your skin. The nearer the fountain, more pure the stream flows, and sweeter the river into which love grows. I have cried for you, darling. Are you coming back to me? For the particles are joyous as they lie on your skin. The particles are joyous as they lie on your skin.
Thank you very much, Damon Albarn. That's Particles from The Nearer the Fountain, More Pure the Stream Flows. The album is available now. Damon's playing London's Barbican on the 21st and 22nd of February next year. Then he's touring Europe. And before that, he's appearing in some extra dates as well. The Union Chapel in Islington, in York Minster and elsewhere. Damon, thank you very much for coming
Thank you
and
very
singing
much.
to us especially. Now over to you, Athena.
Thank you, Clive. Dan Schreiber is one of the revered QI elves, the individuals who research the incredible facts that make up every episode of QI. He's one of the hosts of No Such Thing as a Fish and the TV spin-off No Such Thing as the News. He's so much more than an elf, though. He's a hilarious stand-up and currently working on a book for release next year, The Theory of Everything Else. Today, we're talking about Funny You Should Ask Again, a book resulting from a segment from Radio 2's breakfast show, The Why Workshop, where listeners ask questions like, can an airplane fly through a window, and demand answers. Dan, has this book made the early mornings worth it?
Yeah, it is fascinating. These are all the questions that you get asked by children that you've been asking yourself your whole life, that you've never bothered to look into. And so every Wednesday morning, we sort of get an excuse to go, actually, how does that work? And try and come up with a very solid answer. And you just find out amazing things along the way. We were talking about dust jackets and where they come from, because actually, why aren't they protecting the only bit of the book that actually gets dust on it, the pages themselves? It's just the cover, right? And we don't know the true answer to it, but you start looking around about how libraries protect books. And there's this amazing library in Portugal where they are protected by a colony of bats. It's been there 200 years, and every night they swoop down and eat all the insects that are trying to eat the books and so on, and they cover the shelves so that they don't get guano on them. And it's just all these amazing methods. So you get your answer, but then you get all these extra answers.
And do the bats, do they pick up the library fines as well?
They're really on patrol, yeah. It's
This is a book full of questions.
Yeah.
And it's full of them, and there's probably another 5 books worth of questions out there. Why are we so thirsty to answer kind of these strange questions that just come to our heads?
I think because they've been around forever, and when you get a good answer, it slightly alters your understanding of everything, of who you are, of the world that you live in. There's things where you ask a question about your body. There's a question that is in the book of why do we have 2 nostrils instead of 1 nostril, just one hole? And it's amazing when you suddenly look into it. So the 2 nostrils are functioning very different at every moment of the day. So if you were to cover one of your nostrils right now with a finger and take a sniff, see how the air comes in. Now put it on the other nostril and take a sniff. And one should have more air flowing in than the other. If you're a bit snotty, it might be a bit congested. But
In time of COVID, I'm not sure this is an ideal...
You're allowed to touch your own face. Don't touch other people's faces, touch your own face. But the reason that there'll be one that's clearer is that's the dominant nostril for the day, and it's analysing smells as quick as possible. Whereas the other nostril is slower. It takes the smell in and it runs it almost through a kind of like car wash, just analysing everything, every particle, taking it apart and telling you what it is. And the weird thing is it changes every few hours. So you'll get a new dominant nostril 4 hours later, and then the other one takes a break and gets a bit lazy.
One thing I love about this book is that it takes away, for a moment, the urge to go on Google and Wikipedia to find the answers to things. Do you think books like this really make people understand that research is a profession, and it kind of reminds people that it takes expertise to gain knowledge and understand things?
Yeah, well, I hope that what QI does generally is it says we are just taking information that other people are compiling, showcasing it and championing them and showing that, look at this amazing world. There are scientists who are working out why nostrils function how they do, or there's people sitting in labs working out how mosquitoes are biting people and for what reason. Yeah, I think it is a thing that we just need. We're thirsty for it, and we'll never run out of it. There's just so much of it.
No Such Thing as a Fish went on the Nerd Immunity Tour. What do you enjoy about recording podcasts live?
Oh, the podcast live. So the podcast that we do is effectively, it's 4 of us from QI, the elves, and there's a bunch of others, but there's a core 4 of us who... Each time we do an episode, we sit down and we share our favorite fact that we've just learned that week, and then we all research it and talk about it. And it started as a little office thing, and it grew and grew, and now we tour around. And effectively, it's the exciting thing about it is you are bringing an audience that knows the show. They are a nerdy audience. They're ready for facts. They don't want anything else. So you've got this big collective in this room just watching 4 people dork out. But the fun thing is that we have a first half where we put on a sort of stand-up show, as it were. But the aim of this tour is to find the nerdiest person in each city, in each room, who comes to visit us, and we get them to tell us their nerd credentials. And sometimes they're very sciencey, like I helped with the Beagle, but other times there'll be people in the audience and they're sort of reluctantly putting their hand up, not sure, saying, I don't know if this counts, but I'm currently halfway through writing a book called Hand Dryers of Europe. We just couldn't believe that. We were like, what? You're halfway through? And he's like, actually not quite, because it's turned into a bigger project. It's now a trilogy. And he's going around Europe just taking shots of hand dryers. And so you just get to meet all these extraordinary people doing these little tiny quirky things.
I think of the No Such Thing as a Fish team as being the One Direction of the podcasting world. Do you happen to have any facts?
Broken up?
Is that a compliment or an insult?
To each other?
No, superstars with model partners. Do you happen to have any facts about One Direction that you can share with me today?
There's a few things. Harry Styles, I think he said he sort of properly knew that fame was at its highest level for him when he noticed his mum spotted that some of his vomit from the side of a road was selling on eBay. And he thought, okay, now I know I've made it.
Oh, goodness.
But One Direction themselves were part of a scientific paper. So they've actually made it into the world of research and science. And this was in 2016. And the paper was called Boy Band-Induced Pneumothorax. And it was a girl, a 16-year-old girl, who was hospitalized because she had a collapsed lung. She was screaming so loud at a gig that her lung collapsed, and she had to go see the doctor. And there was so many special circumstances specific to the lung collapse, because you'd think the Beatles would have done that and other, it happens generally. But this was very specific to the type of screaming and two other things that it deserved its own scientific paper.
Okay, I'm going to go on eBay and look for some of your sick.
Yeah, might as well.
Because you are the Harry Styles of No Such Thing as a Fish.
Listen, the only time we felt even like rock stars was we released an actual record, a vinyl of a podcast episode, and we thought, okay, we're going on tour, we need a record, and so we released it. And we did a signing at a record shop. We felt like rock stars for the first time, and then we noticed on the website afterwards that you could buy the unsigned vinyl for £19.99, but you could get the signed vinyl for £20. So we are 1 penny worth of fame.
You're well on your way, Dan. That sounds fine to me. Finally, you should ask again. More of your questions answered by the QI Elves is out now.
Thank you very much, Athena Kugblenu and Dan Schreiber. Music now from the Londoner, New Zealander, Australian singer, songwriter, multi-instrumentalist, producer Jordan Rakei, here to perform a track from his thought-provoking new album, What We Call Life. So this is a very introspective, intimate kind of album. What has taken your music in that direction?
It was going to therapy, actually, as an experiment 18 months ago, sort of opened my whole world to like diving into my past and like being more vulnerable in my songwriting process. Yeah. And what's come of that has been, like you said, my most personal sort of expression. Yeah.
In fact, the song you're going to sing is called Family. So have you're investigating your family background.
Exactly. And realizing that there's so much depth to everyone's story with their family.
All right. Well, we're stripping you back today. We're doing this track, Family, on our piano, the Steinway piano.
And it's from my new album, What We Call Life, and hope you enjoy. I can see the cold world every time I walk, though it's heating up here. I should let it snow. Wrap my hands around you, holding on for sure. And you had to disappear, not yet truly gone. That our lives were torn apart by a selfish greed. No, 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 family, you're still part of me, family. And though I know your hearts and tears, family, my brother's
Just don't let time be wasted here.
Thank you very much, Jordan Rakei. What We Call Life is available now, and Jordan plays the O2 Academy Brixton on the 26th of April next year. So let's come to the stand-up comedian Jen Brister, originally from Kingston upon Thames, now Brighton. Jen actually studied stand-up comedy as part of her drama degree from Middlesex University. You may well have seen her on TV shows such as Live at the Apollo or heard her on Radio 4's News Quiz. Next week, she's live on the stage of the Vaudeville Theatre on Monday evening, part of several nights of comedy sponsored by Free Now, the taxi hailing app. So the shows aren't free, but that's neither are the taxis, I suppose, either. But
no.
But it's to celebrate the role of local comedy nights. These are a series of gigs to do that.
Yeah, so I think they're every Monday in November there'll be a different gig representing sort of a local comedy night. I think the one that I'm doing is called Bring Your Own Baby. It's at the Vaudeville Theatre at 11:30 on Monday. And for anyone who's not aware of these gigs, it's basically comedians performing as we would, normal stand-up sets, but to mothers and their newborn babies.
Well, now, I mean, I knew it was called that, and I understand that from the title, what's going on. But to me, that sounds like a nightmare idea. Because anyone who's ever been, I don't know, best man at a wedding or spoken at an event where there's just one or two babies, they aren't always the most appreciative audience members, are they, babies?
No, they aren't. And it's fair to say that it can be, as a comedian, a tough gig.
Yes.
But the reason why these shows are great is it because it's, I think a lot of the time when you're a new parent, whether you be the father or the mother, and you've got a baby, I mean, most of the time you're turning up to like kind of baby groups where you're, I don't know, maybe it's like baby sign or something, or you'll sing along with your baby or whatever. Yeah. And I've done those. I've got twins. I mean, they're 7 now, but I remember taking them to these things, and you get halfway through, your baby's asleep, and you're singing Wind the Bobbin Up, and you're like, what am I doing? I want to kill myself. Yeah. So this is an opportunity for, you know, mums to come out and just see a gig that they wouldn't ordinarily be able to go and see at night because they've got young children. Yeah. And it's entertainment for them. Babies are allowed to scream their heads off. You can change your baby's nappy. Yes. Often the babies are crawling around. It's all fine. And, you know, the mums are distracted, but ultimately it's an opportunity to have some kind of contact, you know, with reality, with the real world that takes you outside of being the mother and baby stuff.
What's the age limit for the babies? Can you bring like a 16-year-old get a free ticket as long as they play on the floor halfway through?
The maximum age a baby is allowed, I think it's 15 months.
15 months.
I mean, I'm sure some people have snuck in a baby that's past that, but
don't have to bring ID, you know. I look old for my age. Yeah. I'm shaving, I know, but
I know he looks 6, but actually it's only 9 months. I mean, look, as long as they look like they haven't got a great deal of cognition, because I mean, there will be swearing, and I think that's the point, is that you don't want to have a kid that's going to like be scarred. Yeah,
and you don't have to have a baby, do you? You can just come. I assume
you
on your
absolutely have to have a baby.
Oh, you do have to have a baby.
You can't turn up and get a baby.
This is...
No, and also,
what about the National Union of Babysitters, if there is one? Well, you're taking bread out of their mouth, aren't you?
You're not going to want to go if you don't have a baby. Yeah. You're not going to want to be there because, Athena, you've done these gigs, haven't you?
I have done these gigs, and I can't imagine wanting to volunteer yourself to watch comedy with other babies. It would be like going to a comedy night for hens and stags and not realising there's a hens and stag do. It's kind of similar, but I've done them and they're great.
And do you perform with your baby? I mean, in your hand?
Yeah. No, I have done.
Have you?
Yeah. So the great thing about Bring Your Own Baby gigs is that if you've got a small baby as a comic, you can take your baby. And I've done that, and it's been fine. You make it work, and I'm training my kids to be famous.
I once did a best man speech, and my then young baby son came up and sort of insisted on getting into my arms, and it sort of brought the speech to an end. And depressingly, everyone said, "Well, that was the best speech you've ever made." It didn't go on too long, and there was a rather charming baby at the end of it. Dan, you've got small children, have you?
I do. I have a 4-year-old and an 18-month-old, and I'd love to go to this gig, but I will have to forge documents to get in, as you say. But we did a lot of Zoom gigs during the lockdown, and it's exactly right what Jen's saying. You need things for adults, because we do these Zoom gigs where it was music classes and they'd play instruments, and it'd be a bunch of us parents and the kids there, and then the kids would just wander off, and suddenly it's a group of us parents watching a woman sing, Wheels on the Bus.
because I've done quite a lot of these, and I emceed a lot of them, and what I try to make really clear to the mums and the dads is, look, it really doesn't matter what your baby does. Okay, if you need to whop a boob out, if you need to change their nappy, whatever you need to do, that's okay. The whole point is that this hour or this hour and a half is only for you.
We're all in this
We're not
together.
interested in the babies.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
so do what you need to do.
I know you've got a book out, which I sadly haven't seen, called Other Mother.
Yeah, so I wrote a book about being the other mother because I'm a lesbian. I have a partner who we've had twins together. You know, she's the biological mum. I am the non-biological mum. And yeah, that is how we refer to each other at home, by the way. Like my boxes of detergent. So, you know, when my girlfriend was pregnant, there was nothing out there. I couldn't find a book that represented my experience. I had a lot of anxieties and neurosis about being the other mum, and I wanted to write something for other parents that might be in my situation, whether they be, you know, a lesbian or gay couple, or whether they be adoptive parents, about how it might feel to feel othered, where you don't, because you're not automatically feeling like you have that connection or or that you belong with that child because you don't have that biological connection. And I wanted to write a book that talks about that experience, but also make it funny.
Yes, I've seen you did a TED Talk. Bringing up boys was sort of the theme. Do you think your boys will be brought up in a better way, a different way, having two mothers rather than a bad role model of a father or whatever it is the rest of us have to put up with?
I think that what I was writing about was sort of the endemic misogyny and patriarchy that we bring our sons up in, and that sort of toxic masculinity is often projected by mothers as well. It's not because it's something that we internalise as women. And so, look, I hope that we can bring up two sort of lesbian feminist boys. That's what I'm hoping for. But, you know, who knows? It's the whole point of the TED Talk was to say, you know, this is a struggle for all of us. But if we can, you know, try and put our children, whether they be boys or girls, on the right path, and hopefully we can create a better society in the future.
Do you risk bringing any male input as well? The father or an uncle,
Clive,
or something?
I won't allow it. No men allowed.
All right. Okay, but babies are allowed to bring your own baby, compulsorily. Bring your own baby comedies on Monday at 11:30 a.m. Is that right? 11:30
That's
a.m.
absolutely
Yes,
right. Can you imagine 11:30 p.m.?
Well, I was
to
just
be on their knees.
Monday at 11:30 a.m. at Vaudeville Theatre, London. Tickets for Jen's show and other gigs in the series available from nymaxtheatres.com. Jen's book, The Other Mother, is available now. Well, that's the Loose Ends tied up for another week. Thank you for listening. But if you've just missed us, Loose Ends lives on in the online world of BBC Sounds, along with many previous editions, including last week's show, which featured Stephen Fry's Ties, Reverend Billy and the Stop Shopping Choir. Thank you to this week's guests, Jen Brister, Damon Albarn and Rod Stewart, Jordan Rakei, Athena Kugblenu and Dan Schreiber. Today's producer was Suki Firth. The studio managers are Bob Nettles and Tim Heffer. Next week, my guests will include Robert Plant. Until then, from me for now, goodbye.